There are players that you remember because they were great, and then there were players you remembered because they meant something more. Because they were there when your team was at its lowest. Because they stayed when others left. Because they didn't just help you win, they helped you believe again. Jordan Travis, in my opinion, was that player for Florida State. And with his recent announcement to retire from football, I felt like this was the time to make this video. This isn't just a highlight reel. It's a thank you. It's a reflection on his career and also reflecting on my experience at Florida State during this time, since we were in college around the same time and was fortunate to run into him quite a few times. But without further ado, let's jump into it. Jordan Travis didn't begin his career at Florida State. He actually wasn't even offered out of high school. He actually started his career at Louisville, where he redshirted his freshman year, and when he transferred to FSU in 2019, nobody really knew what to expect. He was just another name in the portal coming to a program that was in the middle of a freefall. The team was in chaos, the fan base was frustrated, and Travis, he was buried on the depth chart. He wasn't the starter, he wasn't the future, and at the time, he was known basically for his legs and not his arm. And the coach that ended up bringing him in as a transfer, Willie Taggart, never gave him the chance to play. Florida State was rotating between quarterbacks James Blackman and transfer Alex Hornibrook until Willie Taggart got fired mid-season. They were even running the Wildcat with Cam Akers before giving Jordan a shot. But as soon as Willie was shown the door, suddenly you saw Jordan Travis get thrown in against Boston College, and on his first ever snap wearing an FSU uniform, he housed a touchdown on the ground, and then does it again to ice the game. There were clear flashes here, but he still wasn't seen as a full-time starter due to his limited passing ability. Then came the 2020 season. COVID made everything feel weird and disjointed. FSU was rebuilding again, and this time under a new head coach, Mike Norvell, and when the offense struggled to do anything, Jordan Travis again came off the bench and gave the team a pulse. Fun fact, although they benched James Blackman before the Jacksonville State game, they decided to let Tate Rodemaker start over Jordan Travis, and it wasn't until FSU was down 14-0 to FCS opponent Jacksonville State, and after a pick six on a screen pass, Mike Norvell probably realized there wasn't nothing left to lose by putting Travis in, and with his completely different style of play, being a very good runner was really crucial and started to unlock some things in this offense that weren't really possible before. FSU for many years has had a terrible offensive line, so having a quick QB who could evade pass rushers and be a real threat with his legs was something that this offense desperately needed. And after leading the comeback against Jack State, he took over the offense and it looked like he was the guy for the future. But again, he was a very raw passer. Defenses did not respect his passing ability, and most of the time, they were correct. But there were games where he showed his flashes not only with his legs, but with his arm. The two games that really come to mind would be when he went to South Bend to play a top 5 Notre Dame team, and he played pretty decent against a really good team that did end up making the playoff. But the best moment of the 2020 season easily became when another top 5 team in the land, North Carolina, came down to Tallahassee. And I remember this game vividly because the day before I was at my brother's wedding and I was deciding if I wanted to drive back up to Tallahassee to go to this game. Now I did end up deciding to go, and I remember walking to the stadium and running into some North Carolina fans, and I was like, say, if we can keep it within 20 points, I wouldn't be upset. But somehow, some way, Florida State started off on fire, blocking a punt from UNC on their opening drive, and then Jordan Travis housed the first play on offense for a TD. FSU got out to a huge lead, but almost blew it. But North Carolina was clearly overlooking this game, and Florida State held on. And to this day, this was the last time Florida State beat a top 5 team in Doak Campbell Stadium. And even at 20% capacity, the atmosphere was insane. It was definitely a top 5 moment during my time at Florida State. But injuries ended up catching up to Travis, and he only played in 8 games this year, and when Jordan wasn't playing, the offense was completely inept, and FSU finished 3-6, and honestly, they were gonna go 3-9 if they played a full 12-game season, because they didn't have to play at Florida or Clemson this year. Jordan Travis felt like the future at this point, but there were still doubts about his ability to improve as a passer, and most importantly, stay healthy. Now, going into 2021, FSU wasn't fully bought into the Jordan Travis experiment, and they brought in Mackenzie Milton, who was coming off a gruesome leg injury and was honestly a huge story that he could even walk, let alone play football, which added more questions about the staff's confidence in Jordan Travis. And the 2021 season started off as badly as it possibly could. FSU opened up with a heartbreaking loss to Notre Dame in overtime, which honestly, that game was awesome. I mean, that was a great comeback. Obviously, when you saw Mackenzie Milton come in for Jordan Travis, everyone thought that, okay, this is Mackenzie Milton's team because, he made a good pass and stuff. But Jordan Travis still played pretty decent, but still, it wasn't that great. But the next week followed up with a complete disaster against Jacksonville State. Probably the second worst thing to ever happen on September 11th, but for the first time ever, Florida State lost to an FCS team. And I remember watching this play in slow motion, the final play, and was completely shocked. I didn't say a single word while walking home to my apartment. It was insane. I couldn't even believe it. So as Florida State started off 0-4 for the first time in modern FSU history, Jordan was in and out of the lineup with injuries, and the coaching staff wasn't fully committed to him yet, and the offense again had no rhythm. But then, late in the year, when the season felt lost, he started stringing games together, and he had another great game on the road against UNC. And during the final home game of the season, and my final home game as an FSU student, Florida State needed to win this game to stay in contention for a bowl game, and they had to play against Miami. They played hard, and the Noles were on the ropes, where it was 4th and 14, and FSU needed a first down to keep the game alive, and Jordan Travis made the play, not with his legs, but with his arm. He led FSU to a huge rivalry win, which doesn't really fix a season, but it reminds you of what a program can be. And by the end of 2021, the team still didn't have a winning record, but Jordan Travis had done something important. He earned the team's trust, and most importantly, he earned the job. 2022 was a turning point, not just for Florida State, but for Jordan Travis personally. By this point, the coaching staff had made the decision to fully build the offense around him. They stopped trying to force square pegs into round holes, and instead leaned into what made Jordan special: his ability to make plays on the ground, extend broken plays into something magical, and pick apart defenses when given the time and confidence. And you could feel the shift even before the first major test. That Week 0 game against Duquesne might have seemed small on paper, but for fans like me who've sat through 4 straight losing seasons, it was a relief just to start the year 1-0. The offense looked cohesive, Jordan looked comfortable, and it felt like Florida State had momentum heading into a real challenge. That real challenge came fast, in New Orleans against LSU under the lights of the Superdome. That night was electric. From the first drive, you could tell Jordan Travis came to play. With some trickery and some toughness, Jordan made the plays with his arm to show that he was a threat as a passer. Of course, it wouldn't be an FSU game in this era without some chaos, and after LSU muffed a punt and FSU was set to ice it on the goal line, we fumbled. Then LSU marched 99 yards, got an extra untimed down for some reason, scored a touchdown, and then the extra point gets blocked. FSU wins. Absolute badness. I feel like this is the game where people really started to look at Jordan Travis as maybe he might actually be a pretty good quarterback. Like, everyone knew he was a great runner, but he was actually starting to make some pretty good passes, especially against a solid SEC defense. And it wasn't just a fun story anymore. He was starting to prove people that he could be the guy. And even though he dealt with injuries mid-season, like with the Louisville game where I thought his season would be over, I remember seeing him on crutches and I thought, oh my gosh, like this guy cannot catch a break. He just kept coming back. He kept showing resilience. I don't think he missed a single game this season, but shortly after, they started to hit a slow point, and they ended up dropping 3 straight games to Wake Forest, NC State, and Clemson. But the team didn't fold. In fact, that was the last time Jordan Travis lost a college football game. From there, FSU went on a tear, winning out, dominating their rivals, and looking better each week. Especially, now we gotta take a look at this Miami game in Hard Rock. That was insane. 45-3, which was a full circle moment from the last time they were in Hard Rock when they lost 52-10. They flipped the script and destroyed the Canes. And the Florida game in Tallahassee, that one was unforgettable. The defense got torched, sure, but Jordan Travis was a magician that night, escaping sacks, spinning out of pressure, extending drives. It was one of the most impressive individual performances I've ever seen in person. Like, seeing all these highlights of him somehow making an escape and just running for a touchdown, it was incredible. And FSU ended up finishing 10-3 with a bowl win in the Cheez-It Bowl over Oklahoma, marking their first 10-win season since 2016. And for a moment, it felt like things were finally back to where they belonged. But this ending felt bittersweet. It seemed like all these players that transferred in that had really good seasons, like Jared Verse, Trey Benson, Johnny Wilson, and Jordan Travis, were going to take this momentum and move on to the next stage of their career, going to the NFL. But then something special happened.
So many memories have been made on this field.
Travis delivers. Caught! Parchment! Cuts back, and Jordan Travis reaches midfield and is way ahead of the race.
Travis will throw, fires it up near sideline. Johnny Wilson, one-handed catch, skips the tackle, 45-40, 35-30 near sideline, a foot race, 15, 10.
Travis under pressure, trying to escape, able to escape. Turns the corner, stays in bounds. Sports Center top 10. He's down inside the one.
And we're not done yet. See y'all in 2023.
You just started to see players declare they were going to come back. You had Jordan Travis, you had Trey Benson, and then Jared Verse, which was crazy enough. All these guys decided that they wanted to come back for one final year. They believed in what was being built and they wanted to finish what they started. And you can give all the criticism to this staff about recruiting, but in 2022 and 2023, they were the portal kings. Like, they were so ahead of the line when it comes to the transfer portal. I mean, bringing all these guys in, but they loaded up again. They brought in big names like Keon Coleman, Jaheim Bell, and Braden Fisk, and a bunch of other players too. The team was deep, experienced, and finally ready to go all in. And the 2023 season began with a statement. FSU dismantled LSU in the rematch, 45-24. Jordan Travis looked every bit like a Heisman contender. The offense was firing on all cylinders, and national buzz followed. But as college football always reminds us, the path is never clean. The next few weeks were rocky. A near disaster at Boston College, fueled by illness, travel fatigue, and maybe some overconfidence, almost derailed the season. And then came a big road test at Clemson. They were no longer a top 10 team, but they were still in Death Valley, still loud and still dangerous. It was a slugfest, but the defense stepped up and Jordan and company made the plays they needed to do to win their first game in Death Valley since 2013. That year, they went on to win the national championship. From there, the Noles kept rolling. Jordan kept climbing the Heisman board, the team kept stacking wins, and after taking down Miami, FSU locked up a spot in the ACC championship. The playoff was within reach. All they had to do was finish. But then senior night came. They were playing against FCS Northern Alabama. This was a game that the third stringers could have won. But Jordan Travis wanted to have one final hurrah in Doak Campbell Stadium. And on a routine scramble, he got tackled in a routine tackle. But Jordan Travis didn't get up. And at first, it didn't look serious, but then there was an infamous camera shot of Jordan's leg pointing in the wrong direction. And then the cart came out. I was in complete shock and felt numb as a fan. So many times you saw him take hits, and you would get up like nothing was wrong. But like most major injuries, they just happen at the wrong place and at the wrong time. And it wasn't just a season-ending injury. It was a gut punch to everything that was being built this season. But the team didn't quit. The next week, they escaped the swamp with a close win over arch rival Florida, but the offense clearly was not the same without Jordan Travis. And they still did win the ACC. They went undefeated. The defense was absolutely carrying and was dominant. But with Jordan sidelined, the College Football Playoff Committee lost faith. And despite doing everything right, Florida State was left out of the playoff. I made a video talking about why the playoff sucks, by the way, so you can watch that if you want. Moving on, everyone declared for the draft and moved on. Travis still ended up getting drafted in the 5th round by the Jets, but clearly he needed to heal up before he had the chance to see the field. But that chance would never come. Jordan later announced that he was medically retiring from football. on the advice of the Jets medical staff and realizing his rehabbing wasn't progressing as he hoped, for a kid who fought so hard for so long, it was a heartbreaking ending. But endings don't define legacies. Jordan Travis was the perfect person to enter this program when he did. He decided to join FSU at its lowest and stuck through all the BS that came his way and improved every single year. He was the leader that FSU needed to convince fans, recruits, transfers, and the rest of the country that FSU was on the way back. He became a symbol of hope. And that's gonna be it, guys. I hope y'all enjoyed this video. Jordan Travis really had a big impact on my career at Florida State. Like, I really, enjoyed everything he brought, even though, all the years he was there, we weren't very good, but seeing him make those plays, it just gave you something to feel good about. And then also seeing him in person a few times, I think his girlfriend at the time lived in my apartment complex. I ran into him a few times, and he was always, a nice, like, respectful guy. So I wish nothing for the best for him outside of football. And also want to know, like, what are your thoughts, like, on a player that has had this kind of impact on your school? Like, do you have the Jordan Travis for, whatever school you're a fan of? Let me know in the comments. Let me know if you like these kinds of videos. I can for sure make more. They do take a little bit more time because I did script this whole video out, and I'm learning how to, be better at scripting videos. But, that's how it is, guys. But hope you guys enjoy. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Other than that, this has been Jagnal, and I'll see you guys next time.